Hey, what's up? It's Anthony Marley Love. Welcome to the first episode of our series, Traveling While Black Across America, Volume 1.
Yes, and as a brief reminder, our show is based on our experiences traveling, and we base those experiences off of how good of a drive it was, how much fun we had, and most importantly, how comfortable do we feel as Black people visiting for the first time.
So, we will be hitting up 4 cities across Middle America for this series. The first city, we are starting in our home state of Missouri, in the beautiful city of Kansas City.
Yes, and we want to thank our sponsors, Real Solutions RS and Sync Seattle. You'll learn more about them within the episode. And as always, take a look at this episode and let us know what you think. A few years back, we started our show to help others interested in exploring the Pacific Northwest.
Inspired by the spirit of the Negro Motorist Green Book, we wanted to be a valuable resource to Black and BIPOC travelers, while also connecting them to some of the most amazing places in this part of the country.
We thought, what if we took our show to some other cities across the United States? What new things could we learn? What new stories could we hear?
So we decided to find out and picked 4 cities:
Kansas City, Missouri,
Denver, Colorado,
Cheyenne, Wyoming,
Billings, Montana, and loaded up in the car to drop in to experience each for a couple of days.
And of course, rate our experience for the drive, the amount of fun, and most importantly, how comfortable we felt visiting as a Black traveler.
I'm Anthony Love.
I'm Marley Love.
Come along with us on Traveling While Black Across America,
Volume 1. For the first stop in our TWB Across America series, we chose a city located within our birth state of Missouri, the Midwestern city sitting on the banks of the Missouri River, Kansas City.
To most people, the city may not come to mind in being thought of in regards to being a large city, even though it is in fact the 36th largest in the country. But to most people, the city is well known for a few other things.
Things that locals won't hesitate to let you know about, like...
All over the world, they often refer to Kansas City as barbecue.
You also have barbecue.
Is that in BBQ Capital of the world?
Or...
refer to Kansas City as jazz.
But you have the jazz history here, which is rich.
What's jazz history?
The evolution of jazz, Kansas City is right at the epicenter of that.
And of course...
refer to Kansas City as in baseball.
I can't say you have Negro Leagues baseball.
Kansas City is the birthplace of the Negro Leagues.
Yes, they will let you know.
I even didn't mention the jazz and barbecue.
But for us, having grown up on the other side of the state, whose opinion on the city normally would be, I can't lie, us on the St. Louis side of the state, we low-key hated on the city. But during this experience, on this particular visit, we were blown away by what we were able to learn about the city and its enormous contributions, not only to Black culture, but American culture.
On our visit to Kansas City, not only did we get to learn the rich history, but we got to hear it directly from some pretty extraordinary Kansas City locals, each somewhat an expert of the Kansas City culture.
Like Bob Kendrick, president of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, George W. Gates II, COO of the famous Gates Barbecue, Jermaine Reed, former Kansas City councilman who was also the youngest ever elected to represent the city within the role, and Darren Story, Director of Development at the American Jazz Museum.
During Level of Fun, you will also hear from a local Kansas City Black business owner, Kimmett Coleman, co-founder of Vine Street Brewing, Missouri's first Black-owned brewery that's carving out an exclusive space within the city's craft beer industry.
Yes, this wasn't our first experience visiting Kansas City, but this was definitely our most eye-opening. And we are sure that this episode will be just as eye-opening for you if you're familiar with the city or not. The story of Kansas City's contributions to American culture begins and still lives within the city's 18th and Vine district,
which began like most historic Black neighborhoods during the earlier years of the city's development, the only area where Black families were allowed to live.
Unfortunately, back in those days, early 1900s, 1920s, 1930s, African Americans were only confined to a certain few blocks there in the 18th and Vine area. But that's where a lot of Black businesses were housed. The barbershop, the grocery stores, the hotels, all their shops was all in that area.
Among the collection of businesses sprouting up within the 18th and Vine district were 3 Black-owned barbecue joints.
You have over 128 barbecue restaurants in Kansas City. In 1946, we had 3 black barbecue restaurants. 2024, you still have 3. Not the same 3.
The barbecue that came from these particular establishments would not only define KC's style, but also create mainstream viability in what was once considered a lower class pastime.
Barbecue wasn't seen as something that people really thought was a viable or respectable career. But because it originated there, and now nearly 75 years later, when you talk about barbecue or so, it's not just because it's coming out of a brown bag, it's a sit-down fancy restaurant.
The delicious barbecue wasn't the only thing attracting people to the district. Because of the overlooking of enforcing a particular federal law, the city became a really hot attraction, especially for a particular type of crowd.
There were over 300 jazz clubs in this town. Many people migrated to Kansas City that were playing blues and jazz in the South. And one of the things that happened was in Kansas City during those times, prohibition really wasn't a thing because you could come here and drink. And so jazz began to flourish because there was more places for people to play. Heard it's been said that jazz was born in New Orleans, but it grew up in Kansas City. Charlie Parker was one of the essential people that really began the evolution of jazz from a place where jazz used to dance to it, like Ellington and Louis Armstrong. Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, those guys were the cats that really kind of moved it to the next level, and that happened right here in Kansas City.
This had an amazing effect on the neighborhood, more ways than just a financial influx.
We're trying to put a statue that is still 86th Street and symbolizes that area. You know, with the suits and the chain and the big hat, because that was what we hear, but we were hearing color.
The national and cultural contributions from 18th and Vine District didn't stop at jazz and barbecue. Yes, it extended into the sports world and even beyond that.
But when we look at Kansas City, it's the birthplace of the Negro Leagues. The leagues were formed here in Kansas City at a meeting held at the old Paseo YMCA. The Negro Leagues were where Jackie Robinson got his start. Jackie Robinson's breaking of the color barrier would not only change the game, it changed his country. It was in essence the start of the civil rights movement in this country.
Yes, we were blown away. Somehow, it wasn't until now that we grasped the full impact of Kansas City's Black culture specific to the 18th and Vine District. What was great was that the main staples and what went into defining that history can still be experienced in the city today and within the same neighborhood.
So for the first city we stopped in as a part of our Traveling While Black Across America series, knowing what we know now, we felt lucky to have another opportunity to experience the city of Kansas City, this time the right way. Drive grade. Before we get into it, let us explain our new expanded drive grade rating scale.
We are expanding the rating scales for all of our categories, going from a 5-point scale to a 10-point scale. This way we can add more context to why we are rating experiences the way we are.
For a drive grade, that means we are breaking it down like this. The quality of the views along the route, the access to gas stations and restaurants along the route, the easiness of the route, or in other words, the route doesn't require a lot of highway switching, or even worse, hits a lot of traffic. Also, the quality of roadside attractions along the route. Finally, you already know, the quality of the parking options. Hopefully there are a lot of options, and even better, there are free options.
For this drive that will be the start of our cross-country journey, originally it was going to take us an easy straight shot down Highway I-70.
Starting in my hometown of Wentzville, Missouri, the ride normally takes around 3 hours. But for this trip, we wanted to make sure that we really take advantage of what these parts of the country have to offer as we roll through.
So if we encounter a historic national landmark, local landmark, or just an interesting tourist trap within a realistic distance off of the planned route, we plan on stopping by and checking it out.
This being a ride that both Mars and I have taken many times during our lifetime, there were also a lot of places that we have never pulled off at, like America's National Churchill Museum in Fulton, Missouri.
The museum is located on the campus of Westminster College and commemorates the spot where in 1946, Winston Churchill delivered one of the most famous speeches. We had no idea.
Unfortunately, we didn't have time to go in. Plus, it was closed. And of course, we had to keep moving towards Kansas City. But since the route that put us back on 70 also took us through the state capital of Missouri, we decided we might as well stop there.
Yes, we pulled off in Jefferson City, Missouri, took a couple of pictures, and then hopped back into the car and continued down the road. For the rest of the journey to Kansas City, we didn't stop at any other roadside attractions.
But we did have to make one more gas station stop, in which we pulled off in a small town called Nelson, Missouri. Our experience here was so-so, because while we did see quite a few other black folk,
the bathrooms were gross. Finally, after what timed out to be 5 hours total on the road, we pulled into our first hotel of our cross-country journey, 21C Museum Hotel in Kansas City.
Yes, 5 hours. 2 hours longer than what the route from Wentzville, Missouri to Kansas City, Missouri should normally take. But again, that was okay, because we were able to see something that we have never took time to see before, and also seen something that we never thought we would be able to see again.
For this cross-country journey, we were just excited about what hidden gems we would be able to discover along the way, as we were just about experiencing the destination themselves.
So how did the roadside experiences through our former home state contribute to the drive grade rating overall? Well, let's talk about the rating, and let's start with the views. There weren't very many attractive ones along the route that we took.
Yep, just gas stations and billboards, so no points there. But the abundance of gas stations and even fast food options along the route does help this drive score high in regard to roadside amenities.
For the easiness of the drive, you don't get any easier than a straight drive down I-70. And even with our detours, it was pretty simple getting back on the original route. So this drive does score very high there.
As far as roadside attractions, while it was nice that we got to see America's National Churchill Museum that we've never seen before, still it didn't really ring the bell for sounding like extreme fun.
We must say that Missouri does offer a lot of other gems, if you venture off of 70. But for our experience, there just wasn't enough to pull us off. So we'll knock it down to half a point for this aspect.
Finally, an aspect important to at least one of us, parking. We actually rate the city high in this regard.
Let me just say that it was very refreshing to be in a city with an abundance of parking options. And believe it or not, I never paid for parking once. Wow.
So based on that breakdown, we figured that for our drive to Kansas City and the first drive in our Cross America series, we give a 7 out of 10 for drive grade.
7 out of 10, not too bad. But still, after experiencing a pleasant drive into the city, our previous perception kept us questioning if our experience in the city would still rate high in terms of fun. Level of fun. Again, since we are expanding the rating scales for all of our categories, going from a 5-point scale to a 10-point scale, let us explain our level of fun.
For a 10-point level of fun rating, we will be considering the amount and quality of activities offered within the vicinity of the location, the variety of activities that apply to the different visitor demographics. And what we mean by this is, are the activities better suited for couples, singles, or families? Are they more suited for younger or older folks? And we are also taking into account the quality of restaurant options, the affordability of the area. Finally, are there any special events happening during our visit?
So, how was our experience this trip? As we stated several times already, we've been to Kansas City a bunch of times throughout our life, but this time, really grasping the Black history is probably why we spent a lot of time on 18th and Vine experiencing that history.
No surprise, we dropped into the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, the popular museum dedicated to preserving and celebrating the history of African American baseball.
Kansas City is the proper place and the rightful place for a museum dedicated to this subject matter to be, because it is literally in the same neighborhood that the leagues were formed. The Negro Leagues Baseball Museum opened in a little tiny one-room office here at historic 18th and Vine across the street from where we currently operate now inside the historic Lincoln Building. The office couldn't have been very much larger than the immediate space that we're standing in. It had a conference room table, and guys like my dear friend, the late great Buck O'Neill, and other local Negro Leaguers literally took turns paying the monthly rent to keep that little office open, and with it, our hopes and dreams of one day building a facility that would pay rightful tribute to not just one of the greatest chapters in baseball history, but what now thousands of people each and every year discover one of the greatest chapters in American history.
Experiencing this museum was amazing. Walking through the exhibits, you could almost feel the spirit of the old players, owners, umps, and others who are a part of the Negro Leagues' rich history.
We definitely recommend everyone visiting this museum at least once in their lifetime, especially in the near future because the museum has some big plans in the works.
So last May, we announced plans to build a brand new standalone Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, an exciting 30,000+ square foot facility that will be built adjacent to the former Paseo YMCA, soon to become the Buck O'Neill Education and Research Center, and creating what I call the nation's first Negro Leagues campus as the gateway into historic 18th and Vine, and creating an international headquarters for both Black baseball and social history. So that's a long way from that little one-room office.
We will definitely be back for that. Our experience with dope museums didn't stop with the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. Just across the way was another museum commemorating another historic contribution from the city, the American Jazz Museum.
The American Jazz Museum is another amazing museum that allows visitors to experience jazz through a variety of interactive exhibits, films, and artifacts, some of which we couldn't believe.
Charlie Parker, this is his saxophone behind me.
Yes, this is another museum that we absolutely recommend folks experiencing at least once in their lifetime. You will definitely learn something new about America's only indigenous art form. I mean, even the people running the museum have some legendary musical moments under their belt, huh?
The museum experience was great, but we need to experience something just as fun, but a little less educational.
And what better way to achieve that goal than to drink some beer?
For us, beer is normally not our first option, but when we heard that one of the most popular brewery and tap rooms within the city was Black-owned, we knew we had to check it out.
Vine Street Brewery, Missouri's first Black-owned brewery. Even though it was closed on the day of our visit, we still had the opportunity to meet with co-founder Commit Coleman, who gave us a tour and explained to us the inspiration and story behind the barely year-old brew brand.
Tail end of 2021, we first announced that we were opening this brewery. It had a pretty huge impact here in Kansas City, at least. Kansas City had never had a Black-owned brewery before, and I don't think people really even thought about that as a concept. I asked a guy that I had met if he wanted to start this brewery with me. His name was Woody Bonds, and Woody was someone that was a home brewer, an award-winning home brewer. He said, I'll do it if we bring along this other guy named Elliot. So Elliot is our head brewer. Elliot was also a home brewer. Along that journey, we actually brought along another fourth teammate. Her name was Annie McGinnis. Annie McGinnis is really the lifeblood of our taproom operations here. Without her, none of this is possible. We'd be making good beer, but we probably wouldn't be selling it very well. The location question came into place, and so Kansas City has lots of great locations, but there's only one location that really resonates with us as Black creatives and Black innovators and community catalysts, and that's 18th and Vine. When we opened June 30th of 2023, we were able to really get a bunch of the community out. It was immediately the most diverse tap room in Kansas City, in the country, to be honest with you. You never see, Black people just completely mixed with white people, Hispanic people, like all different walks of life, the whole spectrum, straight, queer, all of that. So we really appreciated that.
And of course, we had to have some of the beer.
Listen, this beer was delicious. Look, I am far from a beer drinker, but I can see myself drinking beer from Vine Street Brewery, which makes sense because according to Kimmett, Vine Street thrives to make a beer for everyone. So be sure to follow Vine Street Brewery's social media and check their website for hours and information and any special events happening at their tap room.
Yes, great beer and amazing museums. Even our stay at 21C Museum Hotel Kansas City was awesome. Comfortable rooms, and they even had art exhibits within the lobby.
Yes, all of that definitely made our experience in the city seem a lot of fun, but how does Kansas City stack up to our rating scale?
First, looking at activities. We have to say that Kansas City offers an abundance of options for fun things to do outside of what we did for this episode. From a happening nightlife scene within the Power and Lights district to the many professional sports teams that claim the city as home. So it scores pretty high in that regard.
What also stands out about the activities the city offers is that they offer something for everybody, whether you're young, old, or in between. In this city, you can find something for anybody, so demographic applicability also scores high.
In regards to affordability, the Midwest prices around the city were a lovely and a missed experience for us. So, we can say that Kansas City definitely knocks it out the park for affordability. And this has to be great news for families considering a trip to the city.
In regards to quality of restaurants, we definitely enjoyed some delicious food at some really great ones. From a full course meal at the Black-owned Misop Ethiopian and Caribbean restaurant to fuel for the morning at the Black-owned Ruby Jean's Juicery.
Yes, those were great options, but not surprisingly, what really knocks the score out of the park for this aspect was the barbecue. Especially being that we ate at one of the OG spots that makes Kansas City.
BBQ Capital.
We even got the chance to ask Mr. Gates what makes Kansas City barbecue so special. Look, he would know because it was his grandfather who opened up the very first location.
What makes Kansas City barbecue so magical? The person who's barbecue. Barbecue is a personality. And so that's what brings it out. Your personality and my personality are different. You barbecue the same recipe, it will come out different. That's why Kansas City is so great at barbecue, because Kansas City's full of personality, Black personality.
Looking at the tally of all those perfect scores, there is no way around it. Kansas City is a great option for fun. So that's why we can give it a 10 out of 10 for level of fun.
If you would have asked us prior to embarking on this journey, we probably wouldn't have guessed that we would be giving Kansas City a perfect score on level of fun.
Up until this point, Kansas City had been a pleasant surprise all around. But the final important question was, would the pleasantries continue when considering the city's comfort level for Black travelers?
Comfortability for Black people. So here we go. For perhaps one of the most important categories, this is how we are measuring our comfortability for Black people rating.
For one, we will be considering the amount of Black people we saw during our visit. Also, we will be considering the most recent Black population numbers.
Other points of consideration are how prevalent is the Black history of the area, also the visibility of signs that indicate inclusion.
Finally, we will be basing it on how comfortable or uncomfortable we feel personally walking around the city and into different establishments. So let's start with the amount of Black people we saw during our visit. We actually saw a lot.
And this shouldn't be a surprise because according to 2021 numbers, Black or African American non-Hispanics make up the largest minority demographic within the city. So we can give high ratings for both those two aspects.
As for prevalence of Black history, this too should not be a surprise. The history can be experienced up close throughout the whole 18th and Vine District.
The 18th and Vine District not only included the museums that we showcased in this episode, but it also includes others dedicated to Black history, such as the Black Archives of Mid-America. Just by this area alone, the city knocks this aspect out of the park.
So when you look at that depth of heritage and culture, and then you look at this neighborhood alone with a Negro Leagues baseball museum, an American Jazz Museum, you'll be hard pressed to find an area that has that depth of culture and heritage in one centralized location anywhere in the country.
While the Black history is very prevalent, what was not were signs of inclusion. We didn't notice a whole lot of signs that would promote inclusion, so we will take a point off in that regard. But how do we feel personally during our visit?
We cannot 100% say if it was because we were born and raised in Missouri or because we spend the majority of our time within the city with locals who are the embodiment of Black excellence within the city. But the fact of the matter is that throughout our whole time, we felt comfortable.
Yes, people were friendly pretty much everywhere we went. Even 21C Museum Hotel featured a Black artist and welcomed us with a diverse, friendly staff. Our personal feelings of comfort along with the other aspects sealed the deal. Kansas City exceeded our expectations in yet another category.
So officially for us, for the city of Kansas City, within our home state of Missouri, we can give a 9 out of 10 for comfortability for Black people. There you have it. Coming in at a 7 for the drive grade, a perfect score of 10 for level of fun, and a 9 for comfort level for Black people, Kansas City turned out to be a great option for anyone looking for a great destination.
This eye-opening trip to Kansas City will definitely not be our last, especially anytime soon. We were planning to return, but this time we're bringing along some family to experience the history with them.
And we absolutely recommend you doing the same. Kansas City was the perfect start to our Cross America journey, and while we would have loved to stay a little bit longer, we had to move on.
So after checking out of our most comfortable accommodations at 21C Museum Hotel, we loaded into the car to continue down I-70 to our next destination, the Mile High city of Denver, Colorado.
Special thanks to the sponsors of this episode, Real Solutions RS and Sync Seattle. Check the description below or our website for information on both.
Also, special thanks to everyone who participated in the making of this episode. And of course, be sure to subscribe to our channel and follow us on all of our social media platforms to see our previous adventures.
Until next time, beautiful people, stay up, stay true, and do you.